As Olivia Bennett stepped off the platform, the roar of applause still echoed behind her. The stage lights dimmed, but the cold in her chest only deepened. She held the trophy tightly, an obsidian prism engraved with her name in gold. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like a goodbye dressed as celebration. The Grand Pinnacle Award, advertising's highest honor, should have catapulted her into legacy status. But in the crowd of shimmering gowns and tailored suits, not a single executive from her own company, Meridian Creative, met her gaze, not even a nod from the inner circle she'd helped build. Then she saw him, Nathan Cross, the company's newly appointed CEO, standing at the back, arms crossed, face stone cold, no smile, no applause, just an unreadable glance, and then he vanished behind the velvet curtain. She didn't falter. Years in the industry had taught her how to keep her smile fixed, even when the ground beneath her shifted. But something inside her stilled. That wasn't silence, that was warning. And Olivia, sharp, seasoned, and dangerously observant, knew what happened next in stories like these. This wasn't recognition, it was exposure, and exposure in her world was never safe. 3 days after the award ceremony, Olivia Bennett walked into the sleek, glass-encased boardroom of Meridian Creative with the same confidence she'd always carried. Her heels clicked softly against the polished floor, echoing faintly like a warning. She had been summoned for a brief sync with the executive team, no agenda, no context, but her instincts buzzed. Nathan Cross sat at the head of the table, dressed like a venture capitalist posing for a magazine cover, tailored navy suit. No tie, a platinum watch peeking from under his cuff. Beside him were 2 new faces, directors he'd brought in from his previous firm. Faces that didn't belong to the Meridian she had helped build. The walls, once adorned with campaign photos and agency milestones, now displayed minimalist buzzwords in glossy lettering: agile, future, scalable. He didn't stand when Olivia entered. He didn't smile. "Olivia," Nathan said flatly, motioning for her to sit. She didn't. "I'll stand." He raised a brow, mildly amused. "Suit yourself." A beat of silence passed before he spoke again. "You've been here what, almost 9 years?" 9.5, she replied, folding her arms. Nathan nodded slowly. "That's a long time to stay in one place." Olivia didn't blink. "It's been a long road, with big wins and stronger client relationships. Legacy is tricky," he said, almost like an afterthought. "Sometimes it's ballast when we're trying to move forward." The sentence hung in the air, poisonous and polite. That was the meeting. No feedback, no acknowledgement of the award. Just an evaluation, quiet and surgical. She left the boardroom with a calm expression and a storm rising behind her ribs. The shift began almost immediately. Job titles were renamed. HR became people culture. Account managers were now client engagement architects. Olivia's own team was split up, reassigned under new leads she had never worked with. They weren't incompetent, just unqualified, and incredibly obedient. By the following week, longtime directors were quietly let go. No announcements, no thank yous, just names disappearing from Slack and internal directories. Olivia found herself attending strategy sessions where her ideas were echoed by others, word for word, without attribution. A junior analyst presented one of her archived decks with new branding and called it collaborative insight. She said nothing, she only observed. And when she opened her leather-bound notebook that night, she didn't document her thoughts. She documented the pattern. Then came the fracture. A project Olivia had built from scratch, codenamed Aurora Vision, had been her brainchild. It was a high-risk, high-reward strategy for a legacy healthcare brand trying to re-enter the American market. She had shaped every element, the narrative, the positioning, even the brand's sentiment map. She had given it its name. And then one afternoon, she received a calendar invite, not as host, not even as participant, but simply as optional. Curiosity gnawed at her, so she walked to conference room 5A. Just to see. What she saw turned her blood cold. Inside, a group of younger staffers sat clustered around a large screen. On it, her strategy. Same layout, same milestones, same phrasing. The project had been renamed Vision X. Her name? Absent. At the front, presenting confidently, Was Dylan Hart, a strategist hired just 4 months ago. He glanced up and froze when he saw her. "Oh, Olivia, I didn't know you were joining." "I'm not," she replied, voice level, "just stopping by." She turned and walked out before anyone else could stammer through the awkwardness. The steel elevator doors reflected her face back at her, composed, sharp, but hollow. Back at her desk, she opened the original Vision file, then opened the Vision X1 someone had carelessly uploaded to the shared drive. Identical. Even her signature phrase, asterisk asterisk, "Trust is a promise made visible," asterisk was pasted on the final slide. No quotation marks, no credit. That night, Olivia didn't cry, she didn't rant, she poured herself a glass of wine, opened her personal laptop, and opened a folder labeled, Bennett & Company LLC. 2 years ago, she'd filed the paperwork. Back then, it had just been a precaution, a future option. Tonight, it felt like an escape route with the lights finally turned green. She stayed up until 3 a.m. writing the outline for a new campaign for another healthcare brand. Solis RX, a potential client she had quietly kept in touch with, a brand Meridian had fumbled the pitch with last year. By sunrise, she had rewritten the core strategy, drafted a rollout schedule, and outlined her own business deck. She placed her silver Parker pen, once broken, now repaired, next to the laptop, clicked it open, and wrote a single sentence at the top of the draft. "I do not need their name to prove mine." In the following days, Olivia moved quietly. She printed nothing, she shared no drafts, but she built, and slowly, she gathered a team, not rebels, not renegades, but the forgotten. People like Jonah, an ex-UX lead who'd been reassigned to email segmentation. Priya, a brand voice specialist who hadn't spoken in meetings since the reorg. And Elena, a veteran copy lead recently reduced to content labeling. They met off hours in the unused East Annex. No company Slack, no emails, just real work. They called it the quiet room. They built Solis RX from the ground up. A full brand resurrection, narrative, strategy, launch cadence. Olivia personally handled the IP, registered it through Bennett & Company as an external consultant. Legally, she owned every slide, every phrase, every framework. Nathan had taught her one thing: never let them own what they didn't create. So she didn't. And when Solis RX awarded the contract, choosing her pitch over Meridian's, she submitted the official billing through her LLC. The moment of reckoning had begun. It happened quietly. No announcement, no heads up, just a flicker in the system that only Olivia Bennett would notice. She was at her desk early, too early. In fact, the office was still dark except for the glow of her monitor and the slow hum of the espresso machine in the hallway. She sipped her coffee while finalizing the final alignment points on the Solis RX campaign. The pitch had been sent. The client had responded with enthusiasm. And everything was falling into place. Until she opened the internal project tracker. Solis RX was no longer listed under her name. The project had been renamed, Solis Future Initiative, and reassigned to a new team, led by none other than Dylan Hart. The same strategist who had once presented her stolen work under a different name. Olivia scrolled through the metadata. The system had been updated at 1:47 a.m. Someone was working late, but not just working, rewriting history. She froze, then quickly opened her private drive. Checked the original registration. Her name was still on the official documentation. The campaign IP was still owned by Bennett & Co. But the move was clear. Nathan Cross had seen the Solis RX win coming and was positioning his people to take the credit. The worst part? He hadn't even tried to hide it. 2 hours later, Olivia walked into the East Annex, what the small team now referred to as their ghost office. It was a windowless storage room that had once held extra monitors and dust-covered filing cabinets. Now it was their war room. The walls were covered in printed drafts, flowcharts, data maps, and mood boards. A single whiteboard stood in the corner, scrawled with timelines and deadlines in red ink. Jonah looked up from his laptop. His brows furrowed. "You saw the update?" he asked. Olivia nodded. "They moved the entire campaign," Elena added, standing beside a large print of the new Solis RX logo they had designed together. Stripped our names. Again. Olivia didn't respond right away. She walked over to the whiteboard, stared at it for a long moment, then picked up a dry erase marker and crossed out one word, Veritas. Underneath, she wrote, Bennett and Company. No one said anything, but they didn't have to. The unexpected event wasn't the theft, it was the email. That afternoon, as Olivia sat in a coffee shop 2 blocks away, trying to recalibrate her next move, a message popped up in her private inbox. From Elise Ramos, Chief Communications Officer, Solis RX. Subject: Quick call, body. Hi Olivia, are you available for a 10-minute chat this afternoon? Discreet, off record. She blinked. Elise had been a wildcard during the pitch process, sharp, direct, but impossible to read. Olivia responded with a time. 10 minutes later, her phone rang. Olivia, Elise said in a low voice. This call never happened. Understood? Understood. There's something you need to know. Your pitch? It made waves. The board was unanimously impressed. You're the reason Solis RX came back to the table. But earlier today, someone from Meridian reached out, claimed they led the project, sent over a watered-down version of your materials. I've seen both decks. I know the truth. Olivia felt her stomach turn. We're not stupid. Elise continued. Your name's not on their slides. Their language isn't even coherent. But I want to make something clear. If this becomes a dispute, we're pulling the entire campaign. We won't get dragged into an IP war. I understand, Olivia said slowly. So what do you want me to do? Take back control. Cleanly, quietly. Make it undeniable that this work is yours. And fast. The line went dead. Olivia sat back in her chair, heart thudding. Elise wasn't warning her. She was challenging her. That night, Olivia didn't sleep. She stayed in the annex with Jonah and Elena until past midnight. They restructured the entire deck, enhanced the analytics, refreshed the visual brand system, and added embedded watermarks across every page. At the bottom of each slide, a subtle footer read, developed exclusively by Bennett & Co. Strategy and Narrative Division. All rights reserved. By 3 a.m., she had sent the updated campaign directly to Solis RX via secured drive. Not from her Veritas account, but from Bennett & Company. No ambiguity, no way to spin it. She wasn't hiding anymore. The next morning, all hell broke loose. A company-wide email went out from Veritas Communications at 8:09 a.m. to clarify recent confusion regarding project ownership. Solis' future initiative is being handled by a cross-functional team under the strategic leadership of Dylan Hart. We appreciate everyone's collaboration. Olivia's name wasn't mentioned, not even once. At 8:14, another email hit her inbox. From Elise Ramos. Subject: Confirmed. Body: We've officially terminated all engagements with Veritas. Effective immediately. Your team will be contacted under new contract terms this afternoon. She read the message twice. Then she stood, walked over to the whiteboard, and drew a bold circle around the words Bennett & Company. It was done. The unexpected event wasn't the campaign theft. It wasn't the lie. It was Solis RX choosing her anyway. Publicly, definitively. That afternoon, Nathan stormed past her desk without a word. Not a glance. Not a nod. Just a blur of tailored rage. Dylan followed seconds later, eyes wide, phone in hand. She could hear his voice echoing in the hallway, stammering through excuses. And Olivia? She just kept typing. The war was no longer hidden. The erasure had failed, and in its place, something stronger was being born. Not in the spotlight, not on stage, but in the shadows, where strategy begins. The moment Olivia closed the door to her apartment that night, something inside her shifted. For weeks, she'd fought like a strategist, calculating, controlled, precise. But now, after the call from Solis RX and the internal chaos at Veritas, something deeper stirred beneath her logic. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about truth, and for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid to say it. She didn't belong there anymore. Not because she wasn't good enough, but because she was too much for the version of the company that had replaced the one she once helped build. She walked into her small home office and pulled out a folder marked, Bennett & Company Founding Notes. Inside were scribbles from 2 years ago, ideas for an independent consultancy. All scribbled hastily between late-night emails and early morning pitch meetings. Back then, they'd felt like a fantasy. Now they felt like a map. She poured herself a glass of water, sat at her desk, and opened her laptop. Her inbox was already buzzing with messages from her skeleton crew. Jonah had just gotten a lead from an old pharma contact. Elena had cleaned and reformatted the revised campaign deck. Priya was building an all-new tone guide for their next pitch. But what caught her eye was a subject line that read, "Just saw what you did. I'm in." It was from Miles Rivera, a veteran strategy lead who had left Veritas years ago when things started shifting toward bureaucracy over brilliance. He had never been one for drama, but he had also never followed leaders who played with smoke and mirrors. Olivia opened the message. "Liv, you've done the impossible. Made the rest of us believe again. If you're building something real, I want in. Just say the word, Miles." She exhaled slowly, something she hadn't realized she'd been holding in for years. It wasn't the wind that changed her perspective. It was the echo. People were watching. People were remembering. Not the politics, not the job titles, but the work. The next day, Olivia walked into the Veritas building with a different posture. Not fearful, not resentful, just clear. 2 floors up, Nathan Cross was reeling. The Solis RX loss had hit hard. Rumors swirled. Clients were calling with concerns. Analysts were whispering about instability. A few of the new hires were already ghosting Slack, their high-gloss energy dimming in the face of accountability. She passed the 14th floor cafe, where once her team would gather to brainstorm, vent, and celebrate. Now it was half empty. Silent, hollow, a reflection of what Veritas had become. A name with no soul. Back in her office, she found a courier envelope resting neatly on her chair. No return label, just her name typed cleanly in bold. Inside, a printed email thread. From Nathan Cross. To Legal. Our Internal Ops. Subject: Transition Strategy. Bennett. Please prepare materials for phase out. We need to make space for new leadership aligned with our Q2 goals. Frame exit as mutual. Target date: EOW. She read it twice, then placed it carefully back in the envelope. Not angry, not surprised, just done. By lunchtime, she had drafted her resignation letter. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't long. It simply read, "To whom it may concern. I am resigning from my role at Veritas Creative. Effective immediately. Please direct any further communication regarding active campaigns to Bennett & Company, LLC. Sincerely, Olivia Bennett." She printed it, signed it with her Parker pen, smooth, deliberate, calm, and slid it into an envelope marked confidential. Then, without ceremony, she walked into HR and handed it in. No speech, no farewell post, just peace. Hours later, her phone buzzed. A message from Theo, one of the last junior analysts left in the old team. "You left? Really gone? They're freaking out. Word is 3 clients want to follow you. Nathan's gone full lockdown mode. You okay?" Olivia smiled faintly. She replied, "I'm better than okay. I'm free. And tell the others, this isn't an end. It's the beginning. We build from here." That night, Olivia sat in her new office, just 4 blocks from Veritas. Small, sparse, a single desk, a second-hand whiteboard, and a corkboard she'd started pinning with client names. There were already 6 pins. All red. Clients who had quietly reached out. Not because she'd made a scene, but because she hadn't. Because she had simply done the work, told the truth, and protected the one thing the industry had forgotten how to value: real strategy. As the city lights blinked on outside her window, Olivia leaned back in her chair and thought about all the times she had been told to quiet down, to be less precise, to stop making others uncomfortable with her clarity. And now, she was finally in a space where precision wasn't a threat. It was her edge. She clicked her pen twice, then opened a new document titled, "For Those They Overlooked." She started writing, not a proposal, not a pitch, but a manifesto. The first line? "If they can't see your worth, build something so undeniable they'll never forget your absence." 2 weeks after Olivia Bennett resigned from Veritas, the world didn't fall apart. It opened up. She hadn't expected it, not this soon. In her mind, she'd imagined slow traction, quiet groundwork, maybe a client or two trickling in through word of mouth. But instead, opportunity didn't knock. It broke the damn door down. It started with a message from Avery Tran, head of strategy at Havix Biotech, a global firm notorious for tight budgets and impossible timelines. Olivia had consulted on a micro project for them 3 years earlier and hadn't heard a word since. But now, the message was urgent. Heard you're free. Havix is about to fire their entire agency. We need clarity. We need control. We need you. Call me. She did, and by the end of the hour-long Zoom call, Havix had booked her team for a $180,000 strategy sprint, with full creative license and a 1-month turnaround. No red tape, no filters. They were tired of flash. They wanted real, and they wanted Olivia's kind of real. Back at her new office, a third-floor space above an old bookstore in Midtown, Olivia stood in front of her corkboard. There were now 8 red pins. 8 active clients. She added a 9th, Havix. Behind her, the room buzzed. Leah was running vendor calls. Jonah was on his second whiteboard sketch of the morning. Nia, freshly onboarded, was scrolling through color palettes for an urgent campaign brief. Even Miles Rivera had flown in for the week to help structure client onboarding processes. He walked past her holding a coffee and a grin. 3 weeks in and you're already at capacity. He said, you still calling this a soft launch? Olivia smiled, tired but lit from within. This isn't the launch. This is the proof of concept. 3 days into the Havix engagement, something clicked. It wasn't just the work, it was the way they were working. No internal politics, no bloated teams, no fake urgency. Just 5 people in a borrowed conference room, with printed mood boards taped to the wall and real strategy flowing from dry erase markers like battle plans. Havix had given them little direction, but total trust. It was everything Olivia had been starved of at Veritas. No one second-guessed her tone framework. No one asked for 15 approval cycles. They just wanted results. And Olivia delivered. The concept? A full reintroduction of Havix not as a faceless science monolith but as a human-scale health ally, with campaign messaging rooted in vulnerability, dignity, and real-world storytelling. The tagline was born late one night over takeout. We don't make miracles. We make you possible. The room fell quiet when she said it. Even Miles, usually skeptical, nodded. That's the one. By the following Monday, Havix sent over a contract renewal for Phase 2, double the original fee. Olivia printed it, signed it with her Parker pen, and pinned a copy of the confirmation email to the corkboard. 9 pins now had green stars next to them. But what came next wasn't a client. It was a call from an old ghost. Her phone rang at 6:47 p.m., just as she was packing up to leave. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice wasn't. Miranda Hale, former CMO at Grayline Biopharma, one of Olivia's earliest clients. Still building fires from scratch? Miranda asked. Olivia chuckled, trying to light the right ones this time. Miranda's tone softened. I saw the Luxora fallout. Veritas lost 3 board contracts in a week. You're not just winning, Olivia, you're shifting the center of gravity. I'm not trying to shift anything, she said. I'm just tired of working in places where excellence gets erased. That's why I'm calling. Grayline was relaunching 2 product lines, both in markets with heavy saturation. Miranda didn't trust the agencies on her RFP shortlist, but she trusted Olivia. I don't want a pitch deck, Miranda said. I want a partnership. You name the scope. You build the team. I'll back you. Olivia stared at her monitor, speechless for a beat. You sure? She asked. About the product? Miranda replied. No, but about you? Always. That night, Olivia sat alone in the office. The city flickered beyond the tall windows. Her team had gone home. But she stayed, not because she had to, because she wanted to. She pulled out a clean notepad and wrote a single line at the top. Opportunity isn't luck, it's recognition. People weren't just hiring her because Veritas collapsed. They were hiring her because she had survived it with her integrity intact. Because she had built something small, honest, and razor sharp. Because clients didn't care about buzzwords anymore. They cared about people who told the truth, even when it was costly. Especially then. The next morning, she stood in front of the corkboard and added 2 more pins, both gold. One for Havoc's Phase 2. One for Greyline Biopharma. Then, with a quiet breath, she pinned a new sign above them all. Built for impact, not approval. And as her team poured in, laughter in tow, coffee in hand, music already playing from someone's speaker, she smiled, not because she had arrived, but because the road ahead finally belonged to her. Olivia Bennett hadn't just survived the upheaval at Veritas Creative, she had transformed. But growth was rarely linear. And this new chapter demanded everything she had and more. The woman who once endured silent betrayals and erased achievements was now a leader carving out her own legacy. Fueled not just by ambition but by a fierce clarity and resilience. The weeks following the Havoc's and Greyline wins were a crucible of long hours, hard decisions, and relentless self-reflection. Olivia found herself evolving, not just as a strategist, but as a mentor, a visionary, and a guardian of her team's potential. The scars of past battles were still there, visible in the quiet moments when doubt crept in. Yet, each morning, she reminded herself of the power of owning one's story. Her office, a modest space overlooking Midtown's skyline, had become more than a workplace. It was a sanctuary, the corkboard covered with red and gold pins, the silent testament to every client who had chosen integrity over convenience, was a daily reminder that her work mattered. But the true growth was in the people she surrounded herself with. Leah Martin, once sidelined by corporate politics, was now the backbone of operations. With quiet determination, Leah streamlined communication systems, enabling the team to focus on creativity without the usual administrative noise. Jonah, the former UX lead who had nearly walked away from the industry, rediscovered his passion through projects that valued his input and innovation. And Nia, whose fiery design spirit once felt stifled, now flourished, bringing bold ideas to every campaign. Together, they were more than a team. They were a movement. One particularly challenging day tested Olivia's newfound strength. The Solis RX campaign had hit an unexpected snag. A key stakeholder had expressed concerns over the messaging's emotional tone, fearing it might alienate older demographics. The client meeting was tense. Olivia felt the familiar pressure mounting. But this time, she didn't recoil. Instead, she leaned in. She listened. She adapted, drawing from years of experience. Olivia reframed the strategy, weaving in nuanced data and layered storytelling that honored every audience segment without sacrificing authenticity. The client left the meeting visibly impressed, and the campaign pivot was approved. That moment crystallized a new truth for Olivia. Growth wasn't about never facing resistance. It was about meeting it with confidence, adaptability, and grace. Beyond client work, Olivia began nurturing a culture that valued transparency and vulnerability, a stark contrast to the rigid corporate environment she had escaped. Weekly team check-ins weren't just status updates. They became forums for honest conversations about challenges, wins, and mental health. She encouraged her team to bring their full selves to work, reminding them that creativity thrived in environments of trust. This shift wasn't without its hurdles. Old habits die hard. Some team members initially hesitated to open up, conditioned to hide struggles behind polished facades. Olivia met this with patience, modeling openness and offering unwavering support. Slowly, the walls came down. One afternoon, during a candid discussion about burnout, Jonah shared how he'd almost left the industry entirely last year. The room fell silent. "I'm here now," he said softly, "because you showed me it's possible to care without sacrificing ourselves." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes, not just for Jonah, but for herself. For the first time, she felt truly seen, not just as a strategist but as a leader who mattered. Olivia's growth extended beyond the office walls. Industry peers who once dismissed her began seeking her insight. Invitations to speak at conferences and participate in panel discussions poured in. Each time, she shared not just strategy tactics, but stories of resilience, integrity, and the quiet power of refusal to be erased. At a major industry summit, standing under the bright stage lights, Olivia recounted her journey, not as a tale of revenge, but as a testament to reclaiming one's voice. The standing ovation that followed wasn't just for her words. It was for the authenticity that radiated from her. Yet, growth also meant making difficult choices. When a lucrative offer came from a large firm promising resources and reach far beyond Bennett & Co.'s current scope, Olivia faced a crossroads. It was tempting, the chance to scale rapidly, to prove that she could play the big game. But her gut told her otherwise. She declined, because growth wasn't about chasing validation from the old world. It was about building a new one. By the end of the year, Bennett & Company had tripled its client roster and doubled its team. But Olivia measured success not by numbers alone, but by the impact made. Campaigns sparked meaningful conversations, clients rediscovered trust in their brands, and the team grew in confidence and creativity. The woman who once stood alone behind a cracked silver pen now led a collective charged with purpose and pride. Olivia Bennett wasn't just a strategist. She was a force of nature, refined by adversity, driven by conviction, and radiant in her growth. The grand ballroom was filled with a low hum of polite chatter and clinking glasses. But Olivia Bennett felt none of it. As she stood backstage, the spotlight waiting to claim her, she steadied her breath and tightened her grip around the silver Parker pen pinned to her lapel, a symbol of every silent battle fought and every quiet victory earned. Tonight was not just an awards ceremony. It was a statement. Her phone buzzed softly in her pocket. A message from Miles Rivera. Simply reading, "Proud of you. This is just the beginning." Olivia smiled, tucking the phone away as the stage manager called her name. Stepping into the spotlight, the air felt charged. The weight of years spent in the shadows and erased from boardroom conversations lifted slightly. The crowd was a sea of polished suits and rehearsed applause. But Olivia's eyes sought the few who truly mattered, the clients who believed in her, the team who built campaigns in the quiet rooms, and the friends who never let her doubt herself. When her name was announced as the winner of the Industry Visionary Award, applause rippled through the room. It was warmer, deeper than any she had heard before. But Olivia's gaze settled on one person, Nathan Cross, seated rigidly at the executive table. His claps short and sharp, eyes cold and calculating. She took a deep breath and stepped up to the podium, the microphone capturing the faintest tremor in her voice. "Thank you," she began, scanning the audience with a quiet strength. "Winning this award feels like a full circle. Years ago, I was just a strategist trying to be heard in a world that preferred silence. Tonight isn't about me. It's about every person who's ever been told they were too much, too loud, or too ambitious. It's for the voices erased, the names forgotten, and the work uncredited." Her words settled over the room like a wave, some faces flickering with surprise, others nodding in recognition. "We talk a lot about innovation and disruption," Olivia continued, "but true innovation comes from trust, from consistency, and from loyalty, not just to brands, but to each other. The campaigns my team and I have built weren't flashy stunts, they were built on listening, learning, and honoring the stories of real people." She paused, letting the silence breathe. Great brands are not built on hierarchy or buzzwords, but on relationships, the invisible threads that connect us to our purpose and to one another. When those threads break, no amount of rebranding can fix what's lost. A hush fell, thick and reverent. Nathan rose abruptly, the tension palpable. Without a word, he left the room, the heavy door clicking shut behind him. Olivia watched the exit, then returned her gaze to the audience. "This award is not the end of a journey, but a call to action," she said firmly, "to build spaces where authenticity thrives, where credit is given where it's due, and where every voice matters, not just the loudest." The applause that followed was thunderous, a symphony of respect, recognition, and perhaps a little rebellion. Backstage, the energy crackled like static. Industry leaders exchanged nods and whispers, some congratulating her with genuine warmth, others with veiled surprise. Olivia moved through the crowd with grace, offering smiles and quiet words of thanks. Near the staff entrance, Samira David appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. "You torched him," Samira said with a grin. Without even naming him, Olivia laughed softly, clinking glasses. "That's the point," she replied. "He's a shadow, I'm the light." Minutes later, Theo, The junior strategist who had watched her journey unfold with wide eyes. Joined them. That was the best thing I've ever seen, he whispered. Then, almost nervously, are you in trouble? Olivia smiled knowingly. Maybe, she said, but sometimes, trouble is just the price you pay for truth. That night, alone in her quiet office, Olivia pulled out the silver Parker pen. The metal gleamed under the soft lamplight, a reminder of broken beginnings and relentless resilience. She tapped the pen twice and opened a new document. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, typing the words that had become her mantra. Even when they erase your name, your work still echoes. She saved the file, and as the city lights flickered beyond the window, Olivia Bennett leaned back in her chair, knowing the stage was no longer a place to hide, but a platform to change the game. Olivia Bennett's story teaches us that true success is not just about winning awards or climbing corporate ladders. It's about owning your worth and refusing to be silenced or erased. Even when powerful forces try to diminish your impact, in a world that often values conformity over authenticity, the courage to stand firm in your values, protect your work, and build something meaningful on your own terms is the real mark of leadership. Growth comes not from bending to others' expectations, but from embracing your unique voice and fostering a community that honors it. When you choose integrity over approval, you become unstoppable. If you've ever felt overlooked or undervalued in your workplace or industry, Olivia's journey is a powerful reminder to reclaim your narrative. Start by documenting your contributions clearly, whether in emails, project files, or client communications, so your work cannot be easily dismissed or taken. Build strong, authentic relationships with peers and mentors who see your value beyond titles and politics. When the environment no longer supports your growth, don't be afraid to create your own space. Whether that means launching a side project, consulting independently, or joining a team that aligns with your values. Remember, your ambition and voice are your strengths, not liabilities. Most importantly, believe that the impact you make is bigger than any temporary setback. And keep moving forward with quiet confidence and relentless purpose. Thank you for choosing to listen to this story among thousands of stories out there. Like and subscribe to continue listening to the latest stories.